This is one of the better free agent wide receiver classes in NFL history. It starts with Alshon Jeffrey. I'd love to see Alshon Jeffrey go to the Titans. The Titans do not have a proper split-end X receiver. Tajay Sharp projects to be an NFL flanker. Rashard Matthews has been one of the more efficient and productive NFL flankers the last 2 seasons. Neither one of them can play on the outside and, like Julio Jones in the Super Bowl, beat bracket coverage or get open consistently when shadowed by the defense's number 1 cornerback. The Tennessee Titans desperately need an X receiver who can command the attention of the defense. That will open up more target separation for all members of the offense, all the skill position players, from Delanie Walker, Tajay Sharp, Rashard Matthews, and whoever else they draft. Alshon Jeffrey to the Titans needs to happen. They have the cap space to make it work. They have the ascending quarterback. The team is pointing in the right direction. They looked like a playoff team at times last year, so it's the ideal landing spot for Alshon Jeffrey to sign a big contract and go to a contender. Now, what about Terrelle Pryor? You can see Terrelle Pryor going to a bad offense. If he's going to take the payday, try to maximize the dollars he can make, if that's his disposition during the free agent negotiation process, well, he'll end up on the San Francisco 49ers. He'll end up on the LA Rams. If Terrelle Pryor is interested in championships, he'll end up on the New England Patriots. The New England Patriots are number 3 in the NFL in cap space. That was stunning to me. The defending NFL Super Bowl champions are top 5 in the league in cap space, adding insult to victory. The Super Bowl champion New England Patriots. And having Terrelle Pryor would be a boon for the entire Patriots offense. It would help to spread the field and create separation for Gronk, create more room underneath for Edelman, Mitchell, Hogan. Because Chris Hogan's not a proper split end. Chris Hogan doesn't run a sub 4.5 40. Chris Hogan doesn't play above the defense. Chris Hogan is just the best equipped wide receiver to play split end that happens to be on the Patriots roster right now, but he is not a prototypical NFL X receiver. Terrelle Pryor is. So Terrelle Pryor goes to the Patriots. They could move Hogan to flanker, and they could slide Edelman in to play the slot position. That way Edelman could play the Amendola role in 2017, which is a better fit for him because Julian Edelman is in decline. And it's not a gradual decline. Julian Edelman's decline in 2016 was precipitous. Both his production premium, the situation agnostic efficiency metric on playerprofiler.com, looking at every given down and distance that Julian Edelman received a target, negative 18.8, 92nd in the NFL. So in those same downs and distances and same game situations, the other receivers in the NFL were much more productive on a per-target basis than Julian Edelman in 2016. And he was much less efficient on a per-target basis than the other receivers in the Patriots passing game, evidenced by a negative 31.7 target premium. That was 105th in the league. Yards per target, 6.9, outside the top 70. Even his catch rate was outside the top 50. The idea that Julian Edelman would post a catch rate under 62% is staggering to me. I just don't understand it. And then I look up and I realize, oh yeah, he's 31 years old. He's absorbed a lot of collisions in the NFL. But fortunately for him in 2016, he also received 160 targets, number 3 in the NFL. That's what allowed him to post 14.4 fantasy points per game. The ultimate volume-fueled season for Julian Edelman. And the beauty is, if you own Julian Edelman in Dynasty, you can trade him for significant value in return. Why? Because most Dynasty leaguers are unsophisticated. You can see it in their valuation of Latavius Murray versus Duke Johnson, only looking at fantasy points per game. And we have playerprofiler.com for a reason, so you could take your player evaluation process to the next level instead of only looking at fantasy points per game. Fantasy points per game is a opportunity and situation fueled measurement system. Fantasy points per game alone does not isolate the intrinsic quality of a player, not even close. Yet on Dynasty League message boards, it seems all anyone cares about when evaluating Latavius Murray were his fantasy points per game last year, which were fueled by an inordinate number of touchdowns that he will never replicate. And the same is true for Julian Edelman. His fantasy points per game were fueled by over 150 targets, a number he won't come close to replicating ever again. Especially if Terrelle Pryor goes to the Patriots. Woo! Because while Tom Brady's under pressure completion percentage was outside the top 15 last year, his deep ball completion percentage was still near the top of the league. 47.2% deep ball completion percentage on playerprofiler.com. That was top 5 in the NFL. And what do we know about Terrelle Pryor? Size, speed, specimen. Upper 90th percentile height-adjusted speed score. He can get deep, and he can make plays against the elite NFL corners and against double coverage. Getting Terrelle Pryor would give the Patriots the offensive weapon that they sorely needed in the Super Bowl. They won anyway, but you could tell that the fact that the Atlanta Falcons had an extraterrestrial in Julio Jones was a competitive advantage against the Patriots. And in this arms race for explosive talent, getting Terrelle Pryor would be the ultimate peacemaker for the New England Patriots. Now, Deshaun Jackson wants to go back to Philadelphia. That's what he said, and I believe that's what he'll do. The Philadelphia Eagles desperately need speed on the outside. They have Jordan Matthews at flanker running those intermediate routes. They need a proper stretch X player on the other side of the field, an X receiver that can threaten the deep quadrants of the football field. That's Deshaun Jackson. It's a perfect fit, and I believed he enjoyed his time in Philadelphia, and he wants to return. Let's make it happen. Now, Kenny Britt is going to be a free agent. I think Kenny Britt would be great on the Seahawks because the Seahawks lack any receivers with any kind of size. Jermaine Kearse is your biggest receiver. Talk about a useless NFL player. Jermaine Kearse is the definition of a useless NFL talent. Just below replacement across the board for Jermaine Kearse. The just a dude guy NFL wide receiver prototype, Jermaine Kearse. So get Jermaine Kearse out of there. Replace him with a true talent, a true size, speed, X receiver. Something they've been sorely missing for years in Seattle. Kenny Britt would fill a need and be a perfect fit opposite Doug Baldwin and Tyler Lockett. You have Tyler Lockett stretching the field, Doug Baldwin operating underneath, and Kenny Britt running those intermediate routes and commanding the attention of the defense's best defensive backs. Now, where's Michael Floyd going to go? Because we saw the end of 2016, Michael Floyd looked a bit rejuvenated on New England, and then all of a sudden he's a game day inactive in the playoffs. I heard he might re-sign with the Patriots. That's not going to happen. The Patriots signed him so that he could sign somewhere else, and then the Patriots would receive a compensatory draft pick. That's the game the Patriots are playing. The Patriots are playing chess while other NFL teams are playing checkers, evidenced by the Michael Floyd signing earlier in the year. I think Michael Floyd's going to go to the Packers. I think the Packers would be a great fit for Michael Floyd. They already have Jordy Nelson. They already have Devontae Adams. But I think Michael Floyd would be better than Devontae Adams. I think he could push Devontae Adams. I think that Aaron Rodgers needs another weapon in the passing game. One of the least efficient wide receiver cores in the NFL last year, the Green Bay Packers. Michael Floyd would be an inexpensive upgrade. Ted Thompson rarely spends on free agency, and Michael Floyd would be inexpensive. So I like that fit, Michael Floyd going to the Green Bay Packers. Kendall Wright, there's a handful of teams that need quality slot receivers. First and foremost, the Carolina Panthers. They already have the outside receivers covered. Big, tall bodies on the outside, Devin Funchess, Kelvin Benjamin. But on the inside, all they have is Corey Brown. Child, please, get Kendall Wright. He could return to 1,000-yard Kendall Wright next year. I think Kendall Wright, if he goes to either the Carolina Panthers or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, teams that need slot receiver upgrades, I think Kendall Wright becomes this year's Marvin Jones. A complimentary receiver that rises back to fantasy relevancy. Total 1,000-yard seasons for Kendall Wright. 1. Total 1,000-yard seasons for Marvin Jones. 0. Now, if Kendall Wright goes to the Panthers, then I think Tampa, who also needs a slot receiver, should sign Robert Woods. Robert Woods may be the sneakiest ad in all of Dynasty this offseason because he's been trapped on a low-volume offense in Buffalo. Robert Woods was never going to get an opportunity to fully demonstrate his capabilities in Buffalo, but he did flash at times last year. Week 9 against Seattle's defense, 10 receptions, 162 yards for Robert Woods, so he has it in him when healthy to be productive. We saw him at the college level. Robert Woods was an epic age-adjusted producer at the college level. Go back and look at his resume at USC, his second year as a true sophomore, 1,292 yards on 111 receptions and 15 touchdowns for Robert Woods. One of the best sophomore seasons by a college wide receiver in the history of college football. And on Tampa Bay, he would be a significant upgrade over Adam Humphries. And what about Kenny Stills? Kenny Stills should go to Washington. Washington has their slot receiver, Jamison Crowder. Check. They've got their X receiver in Josh Doxson. Check. What are they missing? Field stretcher. Kenny Stills on Washington would be delicious because what does Washington love to do? They love to throw the ball. Prolific offense. Kirk Cousins' 606 pass attempts last year was number 6 in the NFL. And his deep ball attempts, 94, number 1 in the NFL. Kirk Cousins slung it deep last year more than any other quarterback, and that would fit hand in glove with Kenny Stills and his skill set. Because remember, when Kenny Stills was not paired with a fearful game manager like Ryan Tannehill, when Kenny Stills was the field stretcher in New Orleans, Kenny Stills posted 931 yards and 3 touchdowns. Less than 16 games. So he was on pace for a 1,000-yard season in New Orleans. And paired with Kirk Cousins after Deshaun Jackson leaves, you can imagine Kenny Stills finally eclipsing 1,000 receiving yards if he goes to Washington. And finally, what about Pierre Garçon? He's also likely leaving Washington. I'd like to see Pierre Garçon go to Baltimore because that's a safe place for a wide receiver to land and not threaten Brashad Perriman's alpha dog status. Brashad Perriman looks the part of an NFL alpha dog at the wide receiver position. I'd love to see him become the go-to X receiver, and that would allow Pierre Garçon to play that flanker role, run some routes out of the slot, and become that possession receiver, chain mover for Joe Flacco. A great wide receiver pairing in Baltimore would be Perriman and Garçon.